Hi everybody, I'm Lucinda Curran, Building Biologist at EcoHealth Solutions, and today we're talking to Elizabeth O'Brien from the LED Group. Hi Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Lucinda.
It's great to have you here, and today we're going to talk about LED Week because we're right in the middle of it.
We are. This is Lead Poisoning Prevention Week of Action internationally as set by the World Health Organization in 2013. So it's always held in the last Sunday to Saturday full week of October each year.
Excellent. And just so people understand why we really have a lead awareness week, because I think people are unwittingly exposed to lead all the time and don't really have any idea. What are some of the sources of lead that they may be exposed to in everyday life?
Yes, lead is unavoidable. In your lifetime, there is no way that you have avoided lead exposure 100%. So the major source for everybody walking around today is the past use of leaded petrol in most countries and the current use of leaded petrol in 3 countries. And on top of that, because the lead, once it's gone through the car engine and settled onto surfaces and into building cavities and later can fall into the living space and be tracked inside from the soil and pavements and roads and etc. Leaded dust becomes the next major source, and especially on windy days for adults, but when they're doing renovation, especially demolition, anything that involves releasing dust, digging up the underfloor area, for instance, any of those things that can release that leaded dust are a major source for adults, but children, by dint of spending so much time on the floor and putting their fingers in their mouth, are much more at risk of receiving that dust in this day and age. And then followed by soil. So children outside will pick up lead via the soil just by putting their fingers in their mouth after playing with a ball or riding their tricycle into the house and putting their fingers on the floor and so on. Yes.
So Elizabeth, what are some of the actions that you'd like members of the public to take?
Well, anyone who has been around during the era of leaded petrol, we'd love them to go to their GP and ask for a blood lead test. It's probably, for most people, the first blood lead test in their lifetime. But if you've been lucky enough to have actually been included in any blood lead study, or you lived in a place where blood lead testing was offered to children, etc., then those people as well would be absolutely the best people to get a blood lead test during the week of action for lead. And if you have children, obviously the younger they are, the more at risk they are from lead once they start to crawl. So we recommend that you have your child taken along to the doctor, and they'll go to a pathology clinic where they'll have half a teaspoon of blood taken and you'll get the result. And we are running a blood lead challenge at the lead group, and so we're inviting anyone to send in a scanned copy of the pathology result that you get by asking your doctor for a copy, and then we are happy to graph your blood lead results when you have your second one done, so we can track what's happening. But basically we find that the first test, if it registers lead at all, then we recommend that you take action, and so people usually are motivated to take that action and then retest to make sure that the action is successful and the blood lead level is actually falling, and that can happen in as little as a week or 2 after taking action.
And that's nice and quick, isn't it? Like, just to see such a change so quickly.
It very much is, and the same goes with not just removing lead from your environment in order to eradicate current exposure to lead, or removing the person from that leaded environment, but also it relates to when you take on lead detox foods in your diet, or you take on a program of saunas perhaps to sweat it out of you, which is a successful way as long as you wash it off your skin in the shower and not let it get reabsorbed through the skin. So for that process, the second part where you're actually proactively trying to drag lead out of the body via the urine and sweat, the best test to do as well as a blood lead is a 24-hour urinary lead pathology test. And again, you can repeat that a week or two after you've started whatever it is you've started to detox the lead from your body, so that you know that it's working, because the lead level in your urine should go up. Otherwise, it may simply be being released into your bloodstream, travelling around and being reabsorbed into the bone stores.
Okay, and what are the ideal blood lead levels? I mean, obviously 0, but what are we aiming for here?
Yes, we're aiming to get as close as possible to 0. So the only result that we at the lead group find acceptable is a blood lead level less than 1 microgram per deciliter. And unfortunately, some labs can't measure such a small amount, and so you might get a result that says less than 2 micrograms per deciliter. And we'd encourage you to try a different lab that has a lower limit of detection, so that you know that you're getting a less than sign and it's less than a really small number. So the government has a level where they will organise action for you. The public health officer can be sent around to a home or a workplace and assess where the lead might be coming from if your blood lead level is more than 5 micrograms per deciliter. But as I said, we at the lead group recommend taking action even when it's more than 1 microgram per deciliter.
Fantastic. And in terms of action, since it's Action Week, what is it that you'd like governments and other organisations to do? What can make a difference here?
Right. Well, first of all, making sure that they definitely have the World Health Organisation's International Lead Poisoning Prevention Week of Action on their health calendars, their environmental calendars, and that they're doing as much as they can to promote lead awareness and lead safety activities, perhaps even making sure that they're proactively distributing leaflets and booklets about lead safety, especially to renovators and to workers and to childcare centre managers and parents. They're the main target audiences. And then after education and awareness raising has been truly well done, the main game with lead poisoning is prevention, and only governments can take actions for primary lead poisoning prevention in putting it in regulation. So, for instance, we need a ban on leaded fishing sinkers. We need a ban on lead shot, which is, currently contaminating children who are eating indigenous hunted foods in the Northern Territory, for instance, in Australia. We need a ban on leaded wheel weights. We need a switch by the Army, the whole Defence Force, to non-leaded ammunition altogether. We need to know that if you're buying lead crystal, you need to absolutely ensure that you're never storing alcoholic or acidic or hot foods or drinks in that leaded crystal, so that it can't leach lead into your food or drink. And there just needs to be a whole lot more awareness when you go down to the hardware store, so that people don't fall into the trap of thinking that if they dry sand their old paint, that they can put new non-leaded paint on top and that will solve the problem. Well, that unfortunately creates the problem of the dust in the carpet and the soil and the hard surfaces. So we only recommend wet sanding, not done with any kind of a sanding equipment, sanding tool, electronic tool. And we we don't recommend heat gunning of lead paint either, unless you take extreme care to protect your respiratory health and the environment, and have no children around and no other people who could breathe in the fumes. So yes, it's a lot to be aware of, and government has a serious role to play in banning unsafe lead paint renovation, in banning demolition without prior removal of building cavity dust. They have a role to play in advising people who are moving into homes, old homes, that they will have lead hazards and should be tested for lead in dust and soil and paint before any renovation or demolition occurs. And the same with people moving into rental old homes. So there's a very large role for the government to take in the week of action and every other week of the year. But it's a good time to start.
Absolutely. Now, Elizabeth, you've put a lot of work into the lead group, and the lead group has got an enormous website full of resources and tools and kits and everything. How do people find all of this? What's the website?
Great. The easiest way into lead safety information is with our newer website, which is www.leadsafeworld.com. And when you go there, you can see lots and lots of links to our old archival type of website. And also, when you ever Google search for anything to do with lead, you typically get lead.org.au coming up, because we have thousands of articles about lead safety. We have nearly 100 fact sheets and so on. But the simplified and easy steps type of information, the solutions type information, is on leadsafeworld.com.
Fantastic. Elizabeth O'Brien, I want to thank you for coming along and sharing all of that information that's so useful in Lead Awareness Week. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Lucinda.
My pleasure.